The toy soldier's arm hung by a single thread. Nora Hayes turned it carefully under the magnifying lamp, her tweezers steady despite the cramped workspace. Gateway Station hummed around her shop, traders and travelers passing her dusty window without a second glance. She preferred it that way. Less attention meant more time for the work that mattered. Her fingers moved with practiced precision, threading new wire through the soldier's shoulder joint. Someone had loved this toy once. The paint was worn smooth where small hands had gripped it. She could always tell the difference between abandoned junk and treasured companions. This one had been treasured. The shop door chimed. Nora didn't look up immediately. Finish the current stitch, secure the wire, test the range of motion. Only then did she glance toward the entrance. A child stood there. Small, maybe waist-high, with silver-blue skin and enormous dark eyes that reflected the shop's cluttered interior like twin mirrors. The clothing was fine, far too fine for this sector of the station. Elaborate robes in deep purple, embroidered with symbols Nora didn't recognize. The child was crying, silently but unmistakably. Tears tracked down those strange, beautiful features. Nora set down her tools. "Hey there, you lost." The child clutched something against its chest. No, his chest, Nora decided based on the cut of the robes. He took a hesitant step forward, then another, drawn by the shelves of restored toys that lined her walls. Wooden puppets hung beside mechanical birds. Stuffed creatures from a dozen worlds sat in patient rows. "This place fixes broken things." His voice was high and clear, his basic nearly perfect despite the odd accent. "That's the idea." Nora pulled over a stool. "Want to sit down? Tell me what's wrong." He approached like a nervous animal, all caution and desperate hope. Up close, she could see he was trembling. He held out what he'd been clutching. A music box, delicate crystal housing now cracked along one side. The mechanism inside visible through the damage, gears frozen in place. "It won't play anymore," he whispered. "It's supposed to play her song." Nora took it gently. The weight surprised her, heavier than it looked and warm. "Whose song?" "My mother's. She's gone now. This is all I have that remembers her voice." Something in Nora's chest tightened. She'd heard variations of this story before. Different species, different objects, same grief. "I'm Nora. What's your name?" "Yulo." He watched her hands with desperate intensity. "Can you fix it?" The palace engineers said it was too delicate. They were afraid they'd make it worse. Palace engineers. The formal robes. Nora's mind clicked pieces together, but she pushed the implications aside. Right now, this was just a scared kid with a broken treasure. "Let me take a look." She carried the music box to her workbench, Yulo trailing behind her like a shadow. Under the magnifying lamp she could see the problem. A gear had slipped its housing when the crystal cracked. The mechanism was exquisite, far beyond anything she usually handled. "I've never seen workmanship like this," she admitted. "Where's it from?" "The Torvin homeworld. Master Pelvic made it for my mother when she was young. She used to wind it every night and hum along." Yulo's voice cracked. "I can't remember the tune anymore. If I could just hear it once more." Nora examined the crack in the crystal. Repairable, but it would take time. The gear assembly would need to be completely dismantled and rebuilt. Hours of work, maybe days for the testing. "This is going to take a while," she said carefully. "I can fix it, but you'll need to leave it with me." "No," Yulo grabbed her arm with surprising strength. "I can't. I'm not supposed to have it. Father doesn't know. If he finds out I kept something of hers, if he knows I still cry about her." He stopped, breathing hard. "Please, can I stay while you work?" Before Nora could answer, the shop door exploded inward. Guards, 4 of them, massive and armed, wearing the same purple as Yulo's robes. They swept the room with weapons raised, shouting in a language Nora didn't know. "Whoa," she stepped in front of Yulo instinctively, hands raised. "Easy, there's a kid here." The lead guard barked something. His rifle stayed pointed at her center mass. I'm here, Yulo shouted, pushing past Nora. I'm fine, she's helping me. The guards converged on him, checking him for injuries, their relief palpable. One spoke rapidly into a comm device. Nora caught the word prince and felt her stomach drop. A fifth figure entered, moving with the unhurried confidence of someone used to being obeyed. Taller than the guards, with the same silver-blue skin as Yulo, but marked with age and authority. The elaborate scarf across his shoulders marked him as someone important. Prince Yulo. The newcomer's voice was dry. Your father is 3 minutes from declaring a station-wide emergency. The entire delegation is searching for you. I'm sorry, Ambassador Pellin. Yulo held up the music box. But she can fix it. She says she can fix Mother's music box. Pellin's dark eyes shifted to Nora, then to her workbench, cataloging everything in seconds. You're the proprietor. Nora Hayes, look, I didn't know he was. Obviously, Pellin waved away her explanation. Prince Yulo, you cannot simply wander away from your guards, the security implications alone. I won't leave until it's fixed. Yulo's small chin lifted stubbornly. It's Mother's. Something flickered across Pellin's face, understanding maybe or old grief. He looked at Nora again, assessing. How long? For a proper repair, 3 hours minimum. The crystal needs bonding, the mechanism needs complete recalibration. Then we wait. Yulo sat on Nora's stool, folding his arms. Pellin sighed. You understand this is highly irregular. Your Highness, Nora said carefully, addressing Yulo, your father is probably worried sick. He won't even notice. The bitterness in that young voice was startling. He's too busy being emperor. Pellin and Nora exchanged a glance over the child's head. I'll inform His Majesty that the prince is safe, Pellin said finally, and that he refuses to move until a crucial repair is completed. Perhaps that will buy us some time. He stepped outside to speak into his communicator. Through the window, Nora could see more guards taking positions around her shop. Station security was arriving too, confusion evident on their faces. Yulo watched her with those enormous, hopeful eyes. Nora picked up her tools. All right then, let's see about fixing your mother's song. Emperor Havoc stood at the observation window of the Imperial Suite, his reflection stern against the stars beyond. Behind him, Ambassador Pellin waited in respectful silence, hands clasped. She refused payment. Havoc's voice was flat, controlled. A common merchant refused imperial currency. Not refused, Majesty. She suggested the money be donated to the station's orphan fund instead. In your name, Pellin paused. Prince Yulo insisted. Havoc turned. His son had been different since returning from that repair shop. Lighter somehow, despite clutching that damned music box everywhere he went. 3 days on Gateway Station, and already Yulo had visited the human woman twice more, bringing other broken things. A mechanical bird, a puzzle sphere that no longer lit. Small, worthless objects. The other children, Havoc said quietly, do they also have such things? Pellin's silence was answer enough. The Emperor moved to his private desk, activated the comm screen. Summon Princess Kessa and Prince Ravin, privately. His children arrived within minutes. Ravin walked with the careful posture of an heir, 11 years old and already bearing the weight of future rule. Kessa moved with her mother's grace, diplomatic even at 8. Both watched him with guarded expressions. Havoc had done that to them, made them afraid to be children in his presence. Your brother has been visiting a repair shop. He watched their reactions carefully, taking broken toys to be fixed. Kessa's hand moved unconsciously toward her pocket, then stopped. Ravin's jaw tightened. I am not angry, Havoc said, though his tone suggested otherwise. I simply wish to understand. What is Yulo having repaired? Mother's music box, Kessa whispered, the one that plays her favorite melody. Havoc felt something crack inside his chest. Elena had loved that music box. He'd ordered it destroyed after her death, unable to bear the sound of it. He'd thought he succeeded. You kept it, not a question, an accusation. We kept many things. Ravin's voice was careful, measured. Small items the servants would have discarded, things that reminded us of her. Things beneath the dignity of imperial heirs. Things that made us remember she loved us. Kessa's eyes shone with unshed tears. Not as princes and princesses, as her children. Havoc turned back to the window. Outside, Gateway Station spun slowly, thousands of lives intersecting in temporary harmony. Somewhere in those levels, a human woman fixed toys for crying children. "What else did you keep?" he asked. The silence stretched, then Ravin spoke. "A model spaceship. She helped me build it when I was 6. The landing gear broke 2 years ago. I've hidden it in my quarters ever since." "A stuffed animal," Kessa added. "From our visit to the Kelvin system. You said I was too old for such things, so I told the servants I'd disposed of it. But I couldn't. She won it for me at the festival. She was so happy that day." Havoc closed his eyes. Elena had been radiant that day, laughing as she threw rings at targets, competitive even in simple games. He'd been too busy reviewing trade agreements to join them. "Bring them," he said, "both of you. Bring everything you've hidden." His children exchanged uncertain glances. "Father," Ravin began. "Now." They fled. Havoc waited, hands clasped behind his back until they returned. Ravin carried a box. Kessa held a worn bundle of fabric. The spaceship was cheap plastic, mass-produced entertainment. One landing strut hung at an angle. The stuffed creature was unidentifiable, loved into shapelessness. Both objects were utterly worthless. Both were priceless. "I want them repaired," Havoc said. "You what?" Ravin's composure cracked. "This human, this Nora Hayes. If she can fix Yulo's music box, she can fix these." Havoc looked at his children, really looked at them, perhaps for the first time since Elena's death. "You should not have to hide your grief from me." Kessa wiped her eyes. "We didn't want to make you sad." "I am already sad." The admission cost him. Every day, hiding it from you changed nothing except making you feel alone. "The council says showing emotion is weakness," Ravin recited. "An emperor must be strong." The council did not watch their wife die. Havoc's voice roughened. Did not promise her they would care for her children, then forbid those children from even speaking her name. He activated his communicator. "Ambassador Pellin, I require a meeting with the toy merchant, immediately." "Majesty, she's quite busy. Several other children from the station have begun bringing items." "Then I will wait my turn like anyone else." Havoc ended the call. His children stared at him. "Come," he said, "we're going to visit this shop together." The walk through the station drew attention. Imperial guards, the emperor himself, 3 royal children clutching broken toys. Onlookers whispered, calm devices clicked. Havoc ignored them all. Nora's shop was smaller than he'd imagined. Cramped, cluttered, smelling of adhesive and metal polish. She stood at her workbench, explaining something to a young Kelvin about patience and proper glue application. She looked up as they entered. Her eyes widened slightly, taking in the formal procession, but her voice remained steady. "I'll be with you in a moment. I'm just finishing up here." No one told Nora Hayes to hurry. No one corrected her casual tone. The guards simply waited. Havoc found himself fascinated. The Kelvin child left with a repaired doll, clutching it like treasure. Nora wiped her hands on her apron and turned to face them. "Your Majesty." She didn't bow, didn't straighten her workspace, just met his eyes with calm directness. "I'm guessing this isn't a social call." "My children have items requiring repair." Havoc gestured to Ravin and Kessa. "I'm told you have particular skill with such things." Nora looked at what they carried, and something softened in her expression. "Let me see." Kessa approached first, extending the stuffed animal with trembling hands. Nora took it gently, examining the worn fabric, the loose seams, the faded features. Kelvin Starfox, she said. Festival prize, probably 5 or 6 years old based on the manufacture style. Someone loved this a lot. Our mother won it, Kessa whispered. Nora's hands stilled. She looked up at Havoc, and he saw understanding dawn in her eyes. Not fear or calculation, but simple human empathy. I can fix it, she said. Reinforce the seams, restuff where needed, clean the fabric. It'll take time to do it properly. Ravin stepped forward with his box. This too. The model spaceship was examined with the same care. Nora tested the broken landing gear, peered at the connection points. Stress fracture in the joint. Common problem with this model. I can fabricate a replacement part, but it won't be original manufacturer. Will it fly? Ravin asked. Fly? Nora smiled. Does it fly now? It used to. Mother and I would launch it in the garden, see how far it could go before the return protocol activated. Then yes, it'll fly. Havoc watched his son's face transform with hope. I can pay whatever, he began. Same rate as everyone else, Nora interrupted. Though honestly, I do this for free. These items clearly matter. Nothing of value is truly free. Depends on how you define value. She gathered the items carefully. These are memory vessels, connections to someone you've lost. That's not something you can put a price on. She was right, of course. Havoc hated that she was right. How long? He asked. 3 days for proper work. I won't rush grief. We leave the station in 6 days. Then you'll have them in 3. Nora made notes on a data pad. I'll need the children to visit once during the repair process, making sure I'm getting the details right. Sometimes memory can be tricky. That's acceptable. Havoc paused. Thank you. Nora looked surprised. Just doing my job, Your Majesty. As they left, Yulo tugged his father's sleeve. She's nice, isn't she? She's peculiar, Havoc replied. But he found himself thinking about her words all the way back to the Imperial suite. Memory vessels, connections. Perhaps some things were worth keeping after all. Nora had never expected her shop to become a classroom, but Princess Kessa had questions. Lots of questions. Why do you test the stitches 3 times? The young princess leaned over the workbench, watching Nora reinforce a seam on the stuffed Starfox. Because twice might be enough, but 3 times means I'm sure. Nora pulled the thread taut, demonstrating the technique. Patience isn't about going slow. It's about doing something right. Kessa nodded seriously, her fingers tracing the repaired areas where new fabric met old. At the palace, servants do everything quickly. Father says efficiency is a virtue. Efficiency is great for reports and meetings, less great for things that matter emotionally. Nora tied off the thread, snipped it clean. Your mother won this for you, right? That moment deserves respect. Rushing the repair would be like saying that moment wasn't worth the time. The princess's eyes welled up, but she smiled. I never thought about it that way. Most people don't. Nora moved to the stuffing station. Want to help with this part? For the next hour, they worked together. Kessa's hands were careful, precise, her questions endless. How did Nora know how much stuffing to use? Why did old fabric need different glue than new? Where had Nora learned all this? My grandmother, Nora admitted, guiding Kessa's hands as they shaped the Starfox's body. She ran a repair shop on Earth, said throwing away broken things was wasteful when they just needed patience and care. Did she fix toys too? Anything people brought her, appliances, jewelry, furniture, toys. She believed everything deserved a second chance. Nora smiled at the memory. Even people. The shop door chimed. Prince Ravin entered, trying to look casual and failing completely. He'd been by twice already, checking on the spaceship's progress without actually asking about it directly. Your Highness, Nora said without looking up. The part's not done yet. Still needs another 4 hours in the fabricator. Ravin's composure slipped. I was just checking on it because you're worried I'll mess it up. Nora glanced at him kindly. That's normal. It's an important repair. It's just a toy, Ravin said, but his voice lacked conviction. Is it? Nora set down her tools, giving him her full attention. Or is it one of the last things your mother built with you? One of the last times she was just your mom, not the empress, not dealing with political obligations. Just a parent playing with their kid. Ravin's jaw worked silently. You're allowed to care about it, Nora said gently. Being the future emperor doesn't mean pretending things don't matter. The council says. The council isn't here. Nora gestured around her cluttered shop. Just us, and in here you're allowed to be a kid who misses his mom. Ravin sat down heavily on a stool. Kessa moved to stand beside him, resting a hand on his shoulder. Neither spoke. But something passed between them, permission maybe, or just understanding. She used to let me pick the flight pattern, Ravin said quietly. Every launch. She said the pilot's choice mattered most. What pattern did you usually pick? Spiral ascent, then a wide arc return. It looked like the ship was dancing. He paused. She'd clap every time, even when it crashed. She sounds wonderful. She was. Ravin looked at Nora directly for the first time. Father won't talk about her. He thinks it makes us weaker missing her. Before Nora could respond, the door chimed again. More children. A human girl clutching a broken doll, a Kelvin boy with a malfunctioning hollow projector, two more youngsters Nora didn't recognize, all looking hopeful and nervous. I'll come back later, Ravin said, standing quickly. Actually, Nora said, you could help, both of you. She gestured to the waiting children. I've got a backlog and some of these repairs are pretty straightforward. Want to learn? Kessa's eyes lit up. Really? Why not? You've been watching closely enough. Nora set out additional tools. Let's start simple. Ravin, you help with the hollow projector, usually just a loose connection. Kessa, you take the doll, I'll supervise. For the next 2 hours, her shop transformed. The royal children worked alongside station kids, learning to test connections and align gears. Nora moved between them, correcting technique, praising patience, explaining the why behind each step. The important thing, she told them, is understanding what something meant to someone. You're not just fixing objects. You're preserving memories, moments, connections. That's why we take our time. That's why we do it right. A small crowd gathered outside the window. Curious station residents watching their emperor's children sitting cross-legged on a repair shop floor, covered in adhesive, laughing as they worked. Ambassador Pellin appeared in the doorway, observing silently. Nora caught his eye, raised an eyebrow in question. He shook his head slightly, gesturing for her to continue, and settled against the wall to watch. By evening, 5 repairs were completed. The children who'd brought broken treasures left with restored prizes and new knowledge. The human girl knew how to spot weak seams now. The Kelvin boy understood circuitry basics. Ravin and Kessa stayed after the others left, reluctant to break the spell. This was useful, Ravin said, examining his adhesive-stained hands. Productive. You sound surprised, Nora observed. The council would call this beneath us, playing with common children doing servants' work. The council doesn't get to decide what matters to you. Nora began cleaning her workspace. Besides, you just learned practical skills and made some kids really happy. How is that beneath anyone? Father would agree with the council, Kessa said sadly. Would he? Pellin spoke from his corner, making them all jump. His Majesty has been observing through the window for the past hour. He hasn't looked that peaceful since the Empress passed. The children turned to look. Through the window, barely visible in the shadowed corridor, Emperor Havoc stood watching. His expression was unreadable, but he hadn't left. How long has he been there? Ravin asked. Since you helped repair the human child's doll. Pellin smiled slightly. He watched you explain the repair to her, watched her hug you in thanks. He'll be angry, Kessa whispered. He's many things, Princess, but I don't think angry is one of them. Nora finished wiping down her bench, considering. Ambassador, would His Majesty be willing to come inside? I have something I'd like to discuss with him. Pellin's eyebrows rose. You're inviting the Emperor of the Torvan Empire into your shop. I'm inviting a father to see what his kids accomplished today. Nora met his gaze steadily. There's a difference. Pellin stepped outside. Moments later, Havoc entered. His children stood immediately nervous, but he waved them to ease. I watched you teaching, he said to Nora. You're patient with them. They're quick learners, natural empathy, both of them, that's rare. Havoc looked at his children, really looked at them. Kessa had adhesive in her hair. Ravin's formal robes were smudged with metal polish. Both looked happier than he'd seen them in months. The Empress used to do charity work, he said quietly. Before security concerns made it impossible, she'd visit common districts, help at care centers. The council hated it. What did she think about their opinion? Nora asked. She ignored them completely. A ghost of a smile crossed Havoc's face, said power unused for compassion was just waste. Smart woman. She was extraordinary. Havoc touched his daughter's adhesive-streaked hair gently. You look like her when you concentrate, both of you. Kessa's breath caught. Ravin's eyes widened. Their father never spoke about such things. I have a proposal, Nora said, if you're interested. Havoc turned to her, imperious once more. Speak. Your children have learned skills today, real practical skills that helped other kids. What if that continued? What if we set up toy repair workshops across Torvan space, training programs, charitable initiatives? The imperial family could sponsor it. Your wife's legacy continued through them. The shop fell silent. Pellin looked intrigued. The children held their breath. The council would object, Havoc said slowly. The council objects to lots of things, I'm guessing. Nora shrugged. Doesn't make them right. This would require resources, organization, approval from multiple departments. Or it requires an emperor saying yes and letting the details follow. Nora held his gaze. Your call, Your Majesty. Havoc looked at his children again. At their hopeful faces, their nervous hands, their desperate wish for him to choose something meaningful. Tell me more about this proposal, he said. And Nora smiled. The conference room on Gateway Station's administrative level had seen its share of tense negotiations, but Station Chief Owen had never witnessed anything quite like this. On one side of the table sat Emperor Havoc and his delegation, formal and imposing. On the other, the human diplomatic team led by Director Grant, equally stiff. Between them, physically and metaphorically, sat Nora Hayes, looking profoundly uncomfortable in a chair built for someone twice her size. This is highly irregular, Director Grant was saying. Private citizens don't typically mediate treaty discussions. Ms. Hayes isn't mediating, Ambassador Pellin interrupted smoothly. She's providing cultural context regarding the charitable initiative His Majesty wishes to propose. A charitable initiative that would require significant human participation and resource allocation, Grant shot back, without any discussion of the trade dispute that brought us to this station in the first place. The trade dispute. Owen resisted the urge to put his head in his hands. 3 weeks of deadlock over tariff structures, resource sharing agreements, and territorial mining rights. The kind of grinding diplomatic stalemate that could poison relations for decades. And somehow, impossibly, it had all gotten tangled up with a toy repair shop. The trade dispute, Havoc said coldly, exists because your delegation insists on terms that would cripple Torvan manufacturing sectors. Your manufacturing sectors are built on labor practices we find ethically questionable, Grant replied. We can't in good conscience. Perhaps, Nora said quietly, we could focus on what we actually agree on. Both sides turned to stare at her. She shrank slightly under their attention but continued. You both want what's best for your people. You both value education and opportunity for children. You both have resources the other needs. She looked between them. And you're both using this trade thing as a way to avoid admitting you're scared of trusting each other. The silence that followed was deafening. Ms. Hayes, Grant said through clenched teeth, I don't think you understand the complexity. I understand you've been arguing for 3 weeks and got nowhere. Nora's voice stayed calm. I also understand that Emperor Havoc's children have been coming to my shop every day, learning alongside human kids and Kelvin kids and whoever else shows up. And nobody's worried about tariffs while they're fixing broken toys together. Children playing together is hardly equivalent to interstellar trade policy, Havoc said, but his tone lacked conviction. Isn't it though? Nora leaned forward. Trade is about trust, about believing the other side will hold up their end of things. Your kids trusted mine enough to work together on repairs, to teach each other, to share tools and techniques. Why can't the adults? Owen found himself leaning in, interested despite himself. The proposal His Majesty mentioned, Pellin said, seizing the moment, would create exchange programs. Human repair specialists teaching Torvan citizens, Torvan manufacturing providing materials and infrastructure, a cooperative venture benefiting both sides. Using whose funding? Grant demanded. Shared investment, Pellin replied, with oversight committees from both governments, complete transparency. And how does this address the labor practice concerns? It demonstrates alternatives, Havoc said slowly, like he was working through the idea as he spoke. Skilled positions requiring training, dignified work with clear value. If successful, it could model new employment structures. Grant's expression shifted, calculation replacing hostility. You'd allow human observers in Torvan manufacturing centers. For the charitable initiative, yes, as partners, not inspectors. And the tariff structures could be revisited once trust is established through successful cooperation. Nora watched the two leaders begin to negotiate in earnest, their staffs leaning in with data pads and reference documents. She started to rise, assuming her part was finished. Stay, Havoc said without looking at her. Your perspective may prove useful. So she stayed, feeling increasingly out of her depth as they discussed economic models and regulatory frameworks. But occasionally, they'd hit a snag, a point of contention where neither side would budge. And they'd both look at her. What do you think, Ms. Hayes? Grant asked during one such impasse. Is a 6-month pilot program sufficient to demonstrate good faith? I think 6 months is barely enough time to train people properly, Nora said. You want this to work, you need at least a year, maybe 2. Give it time to actually take root. 2 years represents significant resource commitment, Havoc began. So does raising children, Nora interrupted. But you do it anyway because it matters. This is the same thing. You're building something that'll outlast both of you. Stop thinking quarters and fiscal years. Think generations. Owen watched Grant and Havoc exchange glances. Something passed between them. Not agreement exactly, but recognition. 18 months, Grant proposed, with quarterly assessments. Acceptable, Havoc replied. The discussion continued into the evening. Station staff brought food, took notes, facilitated communication. Slowly, grudgingly, a framework emerged. Human training specialists would work with Torvan facilities. Joint oversight committees would monitor progress. Resources would be shared equitably. And in 18 months, they'd evaluate whether to expand the program or let it end. It wasn't the trade agreement they'd come to negotiate, but it was something. A bridge, however narrow, between two cultures that desperately needed to trust each other. There's still the matter of the mining rights, Grant's assistant pointed out. Table it, Grant said, surprising everyone. Let's see if we can work together on this initiative first. prove to ourselves we're capable of cooperation before we tackle the harder issues. Havoc nodded slowly, agreed. As the delegations began to disperse, Owen approached Nora. "That was remarkable. How did you?" "I have no idea," Nora admitted. "I kept waiting for someone to realize I'm just a repair tech and kick me out." "You're more than that," Pellin said, appearing beside them. "You see connections others miss, value in overlooked things." He paused. "His Majesty would like a word, privately if you're willing." Nora followed the ambassador to a smaller conference room. Havoc stood at the window, watching ships come and go from the station's docking bays. "You challenged me," he said without turning, "multiple times in front of my staff and the human delegation. I'm sorry if I overstepped." "Don't apologize." He turned to face her. "My wife used to do the same thing. She was the only one who dared tell me when I was being stubborn or short-sighted." His expression softened slightly. "I've missed that." "Your Majesty, the children want you to come to the Torvin homeworld to help establish the first training center." Havoc held up a hand as Nora started to protest. "I'm not ordering you, but I am asking. They trust you, and frankly, so do I." Nora thought about her shop, her quiet life fixing toys for station children, the comfortable anonymity of being nobody important. Then she thought about Princess Kessa's careful stitches, Prince Ravin's patient explanations to younger children, the way Emperor Havoc's whole demeanor shifted when he watched his kids work. "I can't stay permanently," she said, "but I could consult, help train the first group of instructors, maybe a few months." "That would be acceptable." Havoc extended his hand, a very human gesture. "Thank you, Ms. Hayes." She shook it, feeling the weight of what she'd just agreed to. Outside, through the conference room window, she could see her shop. The lights were still on. Someone, probably Yulo, had left a toy on the workbench. Broken things waiting to be fixed. Connections waiting to be rebuilt. Nora smiled. "When do we start?" The private quarters of the Imperial suite were nothing like Nora expected. She'd imagined austere formality, cold marble and stern portraits. Instead, she found herself in a sitting room that felt almost cozy. Books lined the shelves, warm lighting, comfortable furniture showing signs of actual use. Havoc gestured to a chair. "My wife decorated this space. I've left it unchanged." Nora sat, acutely aware this was more trust than most humans ever received from the Torvin Emperor. "It's lovely." She believed personal spaces should feel like home, not museums. Havoc poured 2 glasses of something amber from a crystal decanter. "This is Kelvin whiskey. Elena loved it. I hope you'll join me." "I'm not much of a drinker." "Neither was I until grief made it appealing." He handed her a glass anyway. "Don't worry, I'm not seeking to get drunk, just to talk honestly. The whiskey helps." They sat in silence for a moment. Outside, Gateway Station continued its endless rotation. "The Council doesn't know I'm here," Havoc said finally. "Having a private meeting with a human civilian discussing matters of Imperial family. They'd call it inappropriate." "Is it?" "Probably." He sipped his drink. "I find I care less about their opinions lately. Your influence, perhaps." "I doubt I have that kind of power." "You told me I was hiding grief and calling it strength, that I'd made my children feel alone in their mourning." Havoc's eyes were distant. "No one has spoken to me that plainly since Elena died. Everyone else is too afraid or too calculating." Nora turned her glass in her hands, watching the liquid catch the light. "I lost my grandmother 3 years ago, the woman who taught me everything about repair work. For months after, I couldn't stand to be in the shop. Everything reminded me of her." "How did you continue?" "A kid brought in a broken music box. His grandfather's the only thing he had left of him, and I realized something." She met Havoc's eyes. "The grief doesn't go away because you avoid the memories. It just gets lonelier." Havoc was quiet for a long moment. Then he rose, moved to a cabinet and pulled out a small wooden box. He set it on the table between them and opened it carefully. Inside were toys, small simple things, a carved bird, a string puzzle, a tiny mechanical dancer. Elena collected these, he said softly, not for our children, for herself. She said touching them reminded her to stay playful even when ruling an empire. His fingers traced the bird's outline. After she died, I ordered everything of hers packed away. Couldn't bear to see them. The servants saved these without my knowledge. They were protecting her memory. They were braver than their emperor. He picked up the mechanical dancer, wound the key with shaking fingers. The tiny figure pirouetted, arms extended, moving to music only Elena could hear now. I told the children not to speak of her, said it weakened us to dwell on loss. I convinced myself I was teaching them strength. You were teaching them to suffer alone. Yes, the admission seemed to cost him, and I nearly destroyed what she built in the process. She made them gentle, thoughtful. I was systematically crushing those qualities out of them in the name of imperial dignity. The dancer wound down, freezing mid-spin. When did you realize? Nora asked gently. Watching Ravin explain to that human child how to test a circuit connection. He was patient, kind, using the skills you taught him to help someone who could offer nothing in return. Havoc's voice roughened. He sounded exactly like his mother, and I realized I'd been trying to erase her from them. You can't erase someone you love. They're part of who you are. The council would disagree. They think emotion compromises judgment. The council hasn't been in this room, Nora said. They don't see these toys you kept. They don't know you've been watching your kids through my shop window every day. She paused. You're already choosing your majesty. You just haven't admitted it yet. Havoc returned to his chair, suddenly looking exhausted. Do you know what Elena said before she died? Nora shook her head. Make them brave enough to be kind. He stared at his glass. Not strong, not powerful, brave enough to be kind. I didn't understand what she meant. Kindness seemed like the easiest thing. It's not though. Not when the world expects hardness. Not when showing compassion makes you vulnerable. Exactly. Havoc drained his glass. I thought I was protecting them by teaching them to hide their hearts. I was actually teaching them to be terrified of their own feelings. So teach them something different now. It's not that simple. The expectations, the traditions, the council's oversight is all secondary to you being their father. Nora set down her untouched drink. Your Majesty, I'm nobody. A repair tech who got accidentally involved in imperial business. But I know this, those kids need you to choose them, not the council's approval, not imperial tradition, them. And if I can't be both emperor and the father they need, then you figure out how to be both anyway, because you love them enough to try. Havoc looked at her for a long moment. Then he did something Nora had never seen him do. He smiled, really smiled. Elena would have liked you. She had the same frustrating habit of being right. I'm going to take that as a compliment. You should. He stood, moved back to the cabinet. This time he pulled out a small wooden frame. A photograph, old style, showing a woman with silver blue skin and kind eyes, laughing as three small children climbed on her. Tell me about your grandmother, Havoc said, the one who taught you to repair things. So Nora did. She talked about patient hands guiding hers, about learning that everything broken deserved a chance at wholeness, about the philosophy that people were worth fixing too, even when they thought they were too damaged to repair. And Havoc talked about Elena, about her laugh, her stubbornness, her absolute certainty that kindness was a form of strength most people were too afraid to attempt, about the way she danced with the children in the gardens when she thought no one was watching, about the charitable work the council had hated but she'd insisted on. They talked for hours. Two people from different worlds, different species, different social positions, finding common ground in loss and love and the desperate hope that broken things could be whole again. The Repair Initiative, Havoc said eventually. I want to name it after her, the Alina Foundation, if you think that's appropriate. I think it's perfect. And I want the children involved. Really involved, not just as figureheads. Learning, teaching, working alongside the people we're trying to help. The council won't approve. Then the council can object. Havoc's voice hardened with decision. I am still emperor, my word still matters, and I choose this. Through the window, the first hints of station morning were appearing, artificial light cycles mimicking planetary dawn. You should talk to them, Nora said. Your children, really talk. About their mother, about grief, about everything you've been avoiding. I don't know how to start. Start with truth. Tell them you were wrong, tell them you're scared, tell them you miss her too. Nora stood. They'll meet you halfway. They're brave enough to be kind, Your Majesty, just like their mother wanted. Havoc walked her to the door. As she left, he spoke once more. Thank you, Nora Hayes, for fixing more than toys. She smiled. That's what I do. The transport shuttle descended through clear skies toward the Torvan homeworld's capital city. Nora pressed her face to the viewport, watching buildings of silver and blue crystal rise from Earth the color of rust. Beautiful and alien, and impossibly far from Gateway Station. 6 months had passed since that late-night conversation with Havoc. 6 months of planning, organizing, navigating bureaucracy that made human red tape look simple. The Alina Foundation was real now, tangible. Nervous, Ambassador Pellin asked from the seat beside her. Terrified, Nora admitted. What if this doesn't work? What if I got everyone's hopes up for something that falls apart? Then we try again differently, Pellin smiled. That's what your grandmother would say, isn't it? Everything deserves a second chance. The shuttle landed on a platform where hundreds had gathered. Nora's stomach dropped. That's not all for. The first training center opening. Yes, Pellin stood, straightening his formal robes. You're something of a celebrity now, the human who convinced an emperor to change his mind. I didn't convince anyone of anything. Keep telling yourself that. The crowd was overwhelming. Torvan citizens, human volunteers, representatives from a dozen species, all gathered to witness the Foundation's official launch. Nora spotted Director Grant among the human delegation. Station Chief Owen looking uncomfortable in formal attire. Children from Gateway Station who'd helped in her shop, brought here as honored guests. And at the center of it all, the Imperial family. Havoc stood on the platform in full ceremonial regalia, every inch the Emperor. But beside him were his children, and they were wearing practical clothing. Work clothes. The kind of thing you'd wear in a repair shop. Yulo saw her first and broke from the formal line, running over with the unself-conscious joy of a child. Nara, you're here. We've been preparing for weeks. Princess Kessa followed at a more measured pace, but her smile was equally bright. Wait until you see the workshop. We designed it based on your shop, but bigger, much bigger. Even Ravin looked excited, his usual composure cracking. We have fabricators from 3 different manufacturers. Ambassador Pellin says it's the best-equipped facility in the sector. Havoc approached, and the children reluctantly returned to their formal positions. But something had fundamentally changed in the Emperor. He moved differently now, carried himself with the same authority but less rigidity. Ms. Hayes, he inclined his head slightly, welcome to the homeworld. Your Majesty, Nora glanced at the crowd, this is a bit more than I expected. You inspired a movement. Movements attract attention. He gestured toward the building behind the platform, massive and gleaming. Shall we show you what you've built? The training center was extraordinary. Multiple workshops, each equipped for different repair specialties. Electronics, fabric work, mechanical systems, woodworking. Areas for instruction, spaces for practice, rooms specifically designed for working with children who brought items to be fixed. And everywhere the philosophy Nora had shared. Written on walls, incorporated into lesson plans, embedded in the Foundation's core principles. Everything deserves a chance at wholeness. Human instructors were already meeting Torvan trainees, exchanging greetings and beginning to form working partnerships. Nora recognized several volunteers from Gateway Station, people who'd seen what happened in her shop and wanted to be part of something larger. "The first class starts tomorrow," Kessa explained, practically bouncing with excitement. 60 students. We're teaching them repair skills but also the philosophy behind it, the why, not just the how. And in 6 months, they'll graduate and start their own centers in other cities, Ravin added. "We already have applications from 12 locations." Yulo tugged Nora's hand. "Come see my project." He led her to a smaller workshop, clearly designed for children. On the workbench sat a music box, not his mother's original but a new one he'd been building. The mechanism was visible through clear panels, gears precisely aligned. "I'm making these for the Foundation," he explained. "So children who lose someone can have something that plays music, something to remember by." Nora's throat tightened. "Yulo, that's beautiful." "Mother would have liked it," he said simply. "Father says remembering her through helping others is the best tribute." Through the workshop window, Nora could see Havoc speaking to the gathered crowd. She couldn't hear the words, but his children moved to join him, standing together as a family. "He talks about her now," Kessa said softly, appearing beside Nora. "To us, to the council, to everyone. He says hiding grief dishonored her memory, that she deserves to be remembered out loud." "How did the council react?" "Some resigned," Kessa grinned. "The ones who stayed are learning to adapt. Turns out an emperor who actually makes decisions is harder to manipulate than one hiding in protocol." The speeches began. Director Grant spoke about cooperation and shared goals. Havoc discussed his wife's legacy and the importance of teaching kindness alongside strength. Ambassador Pellin outlined the Foundation's expansion plans. Then Havoc gestured for Nora to join them on the platform. She shook her head frantically, but Pellin was already there, gently but firmly guiding her forward. The crowd applauded as she climbed the steps. "Ms. Hayes operates a small repair shop on Gateway Station," Havoc told the assembly. "She fixes toys, broken possessions that most would consider worthless. But through her work, she taught my children something essential. She taught them that care itself has value, that patience is strength, that taking time to make something whole again matters." He turned to Nora directly. "You changed my family, changed how we grieve, how we remember, how we choose to honor the one we lost. The Alina Foundation exists because you showed us that broken things deserve patience and care." He paused. "Including broken people." The crowd applauded again. Nora managed a few words about being honored and grateful, about hopping the Foundation would help countless families the way it had helped this one. But the real moment came later, after the speeches and ceremonies concluded. As the crowds dispersed and the immediate chaos subsided, Nora found herself in one of the quiet workshops with the Imperial family. No formality now, just 6 people who'd become unlikely friends. "I can't believe this is real," Nora said, looking around. 6 months ago I was fixing broken toys in a closet-sized shop." "You're still fixing broken toys," Havoc pointed out, "just on a larger scale." "And you're teaching us," Ravin added. "You're training the first class personally, right?" "For 3 months," Nora confirmed. "Then I'll rotate back to Gateway Station and other instructors will take over, but I'll visit regularly, make sure everything's running smoothly." "It will," Kessa said confidently, "because you taught us the why. As long as we remember that, the how will work itself out." Yulo held up his music box, wound it carefully. A melody filled the workshop. Simple, sweet, unmistakably the song from his mother's original box. "I learned the tune by heart," he said, "so I could program it into these new ones. That way she's part of every box I make." Havoc rested a hand on his youngest son's shoulder, and Nora saw tears in the Emperor's eyes. He didn't hide them. "She'd be so proud of all of you," Nora said. "Of all of us," Havoc corrected. "You're part of this family now, whether you like it or not." Months turned to years. The Alina Foundation spread across Torvin space and beyond. Training centers opened on human worlds, Kelvin colonies, stations throughout inhabited space. Thousands learned not just to repair objects, but to value the memories and connections those objects represented. The trade disputes that had brought everyone to Gateway Station resolved themselves almost as an afterthought. When you've built something meaningful together, tariff structures seem less insurmountable. Nora returned to her shop eventually, but it was never quite the same. Students came to study with her. Delegations visited to see where it all started. Children from across the galaxy brought broken treasures, hopping for the magic they'd heard about. And once a year, on the anniversary of Elena's death, the Imperial family visited. They'd work in Nora's shop for a full day, taking appointments alongside her, fixing toys for anyone who came through the door. No guards, no protocols, just a family honoring someone they'd loved by doing the work she'd have done. On the 5th anniversary, as they packed up for the evening, Yulo presented Nora with a music box. "Number 100, he explained. The 100th one he'd built for the Foundation. "This one's for you," he said, "for teaching us that broken things can be whole again." Nora wound it carefully. The melody played, sweet and clear. Elena's song, preserved and shared, bringing comfort to anyone who needed it. "Nothing's too broken to deserve trying to fix," she said softly. Havoc smiled. "You taught us well, teacher." Outside, Gateway Station turned in the endless dark. Ships came and went. People found each other across impossible distances. And in a small, cluttered shop, broken things waited patiently for patient hands to make them whole. Some fixes took minutes. Some took years. Some took rebuilding everything you thought you knew about strength and vulnerability and what it meant to care. But every single one was worth the effort. Every single one deserved a second chance at wholeness.